petition will come from Jubilee, where we will compel Waki Commission to appear before Parliament.
Revisiting the Waki envelope. Why Jubilee MPs want Waki summoned. And war on terror. The battle ahead for security agents in saving Kenya's coast from extremism. Plus, tears for peace. Marsabit leaders agree to end inter-ethnic hostilities. Also, new dawn for Kenyan clubs as Leopards claw Ethiopia's defense forces in the Continental Cup.
KTN Weekend Prime with Yvonne Okwara.
Welcome to KTN Weekend Prime. So glad you could join us tonight. As usual, you know, if it is Sunday, we are discussing issues that affect you on Checkpoint. Today, we are talking about the recent ruling by the High Court that stated that members of Parliament do not have the powers, the legal powers, to determine their own salaries, and that was done in contravention of the law, in contravention of the Constitution. And now the Law Society of Kenya and activist Okwara 09.02.2014 say they will be going back to court to compel the members of Parliament to refund the government all the monies they've been earning since they, of course, pushed through their pay packs. Do you agree with this? Do let us know your thoughts on Twitter. I'll be looking for your tweets. Use the hashtag Checkpoint. You can also send me a text. The number is 22155 as we discuss this thorny issue. How much are they earning? Should they have the right to determine their salaries? Remember, they did that, came to an agreement with the Salaries and Remunerations Commission. They reviewed not their basic pay, but the pay perks that they were earning, some of the allowances and the car grants, and we'll be talking about that a little later on. Remember, it's your taxes, so you have a say. The hashtag again on Twitter is Checkpoint. But let's get to our top stories first tonight. And we're talking about what's happening with the Jubilee and Accord coalition now ahead of the Jubilee Coalition's parliamentary group meeting. The ruling alliance now says it will file a petition to compel Justice Philip Waki to appear before Parliament. This follows remarks by former ICC Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo on reported diplomatic pressure over the Hague indictments. Majority Leader Aden Duale says the famous Waki envelope that supposedly contains names of the 2007 election violence perpetrators must be opened.
It's showing that the countries need a political leadership. And I hope Mr. Kenyatta, as a new leader elected by his people, can understand that and help them to move ahead.
In a radio interview, former ICC Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo disclosed how some diplomats whom he did not name exerted pressure on him to ensure President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto did not run for office. Utterances that have effectively opened a can of worms on issues surrounding the duo's case at the Hague-based court.
We are asking Ocampo to appear before the ICC judges. He must be presented by Bensouda, must present Ocampo and tell the court the genesis of the Kenyan cases.
The Jubilee coalition is now pushing to summon Justice Philip Waki to appear before Parliament to shed more light on the investigations of his commission that formed the basis of the Kenyan cases at the ICC. Jubilee now wants the famous Waki envelope opened and its contents revealed.
That a petition will come from Jubilee, where we will compel Waki Commission to appear before Parliament and give their side of the story and bring the contents of that envelope, where we will ask Parliament to investigate the alleged envoys and their countries.
Assess the state of the evidence.
ICC prosecutor Fatu Bensouda has seemingly been struggling to present evidence in the case against Kenyatta and Ruto. These latest developments come hot on the heels of Bensouda's quest for more evidence. It is not the first time that Jubilee is calling for the release of the Waki list. Jubilee lawmakers made similar calls in 2013.
I want, first of all, Kenyans to know all the names that were recommended for action by Justice Waki.
However, can any other entity apart from the ICC release the said names? And does Parliament have the power to summon Justice Philip Waki?
Parliament has powers just like the High Court of Kenya. Parliament will summon.
There are also plans by Jubilee to push for a special sitting of the Assembly of State Parties to the Rome Statute to discuss Ocampo and possibly summon him. As Jubilee pushes for a release of supposed names in the Waki envelope and Bensouda prepares to conduct more investigations, the fate of the Kenyan cases remains unclear. Ben Kiteli, KTN.
Now, Mombasa, obviously, because of recent events in the last week, has come into sharp focus. John Alanamo will be taking a look at this town and just the efforts that are taking place in terms of fighting radicalization there. But speaking of radicalization and young children in the country, and particularly at the coast, 24 children were among those arrested last Sunday when the police raided a mosque in Majengo, Mombasa. KTN's investigations reporter Dennis Onsarigo spent a day with some of the children released from prison and also with their guardians. He now reports on why it will take so much more than policing to get to the root cause of the problem.
We arrive in Mombasa just in time for an extended court session. 24 minors are listening to their lawyer put their case across to a court, sitting way past its normal working hours. Bare feet, the children as young as 11 years old have spent 5 days in a cell. They are among 129 suspects arrested after a raid at the mosque in Majengo. 8 other people had died in an ugly confrontation with the police. Most of these children watched them die. One policeman also died. As I listen to the court prosecutor, an anxious mother gives her arrested son a gentle tap on the back and tells him, quote, "You are now a man," end quote. Moments later, the children are released. We met up with them at the Mombasa governor's office. The children having been released following talks between the governor and the national government. A religious problem gets a political solution. It is when you meet the children and listen to them that one realizes how far the interaction with their seniors has taken them. Salim, not his real name, tells me they were not being radicalized. He says they had been invited to lunch at Masjid Musa when police came storming in.
Mimi nilifika pale msikitini, tumealikwa chakula, tukaswali, tukapiga msosi. Tulivomaliza kula, ikatokezea hiyo fujo. Mimi nikasema, nilivosema ile nenda zangu nyumbani na una roli yaje. Yule Msomali akawaambia, "Huyu ni mmoja wao, huyu ni mmoja wao." Mimi nikamwambia hata siwajui yao. Mimi hata siko. Mimi akaanza kunipiga makofi sana.
Salim is not the only one of these children who believes the government only exists to victimize members of his faith and eliminate leaders he has come to identify with.
Si vitu mbaya, tunaomba Mungu. Mambo kuomba Mungu, si tuingilie kanisani. Tuamue uwe nyoteni, ni haki hiyo. Wameingia msikitini wakaanza kukanyaga misahafu. Misahafu ya Mungu. Wanakanyaga na vietu. Si makosa hiyo wanavyofanya serikali. Mimi wa Msomali nikimpata lai kichwa changu halali yake. Nitamchinja, ameniua, amenifanyisha makosa mimi.
9-year-old Nuru also spent 5 days in cells, thinks the same. Someone is out there to stop the spread of his religion.
Wajua roho zao mbaya, wamezidi, wana roho mbaya, hawapendi Waislamu.
Then I met Yasin, adorning a blood-stained shirt. The blood, he tells me, was that of a man he saw being shot and get killed. When I ask him why he does not get a change of clothes, the youngster tells me the blood reminds him of the pain they are undergoing. His friends join in. The feeling is the same among the older generation here. 45 kilometers from Mombasa County, Salim Juma is mourning. His 23-year-old son was shot and killed. The son, a religious teacher, had traveled from Kwale to Mombasa for what he told the father was a convention.
Kufikia saa 9 huyu kijana alipigiwa na huyo ndugu yake Rama akiwa huko Mombasa, akimwelezea kuwa tuko hapa ndani ya msikiti, lakini msikiti umevamiwa na askari na wanatupa risasi hewani, lakini sisi tuko ndani ya msikiti.
Suleiman Ali's mother, Fatima Swale, could not hold back her tears. Her 17-year-old son was also killed during the raid. What happened inside the mosque has not fully been explained to the relatives. It is now emerging that 2 young men said to be from Uganda are still missing. The mosque somehow saw children as young as 10 years old walking for several kilometers for the convention alone and not in the company of their parents. Religious extremism has been ongoing in Mombasa and other parts of the country, raising serious questions. Where the intelligence and security networks have been, when children as young as 10 have been made to believe they're victims of their own belief.
Twashukuru gavana wetu. Nilikuwa nikilalamika nasema watoto wangu leo tangu Jumapili asikwe paka leo mtoto yuko ndani.
The fact that the burden of stemming the growing tide of radicalization has now seen a political intervention has left a dent in the religious ladder of Mombasa.
We have the ideology that it is not right for Kenya to invade Somalia. We have the ideology that it is wrong for any country, Western or otherwise, to invade Muslim countries and then label the ones being invaded as terrorists while they terrorize. And what happened here was terrorism to the letter.
That is the language the youngsters understand here. Experts are warning the government must first penetrate the minds of the young before handcuffing their hands. Clamping down on growing cases of radicalization, but what the youth here feel is victimization by the state, will no doubt be one of the biggest challenges for the government of the day. The government feels it is an idea that should be stopped. The youth, on the other hand, feel it's an idea whose time has already come. Denson Sarigo, KTN, in the county of Mombasa.
Right, and in our ongoing coverage on that, don't forget John Alanamu's story is still coming up to just beef up to what Dennis Onsarigo has just told us regarding the battle for ideology at the coast, who to believe between the radicalists and of course the imams. John Alanamu will be taking a deeper look into that in this bulletin, so do stay with us. Let's go to matters politics first. CORD and Jubilee coalitions are all set for their parliamentary group meetings beginning tomorrow. The two coalitions will meet in Naivasha and Nairobi respectively to strategize on their parliamentary agenda just before Parliament reconvenes this week. And as KTN's Asha Mwilo reports, the group meetings may just shift political gears to another level.
Major shakeups in the political world seem to be slowly brewing. In Naivasha, leaders of the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy have assembled. But this is no ordinary retreat. Insiders say the coalition is whipping errant MPs back into the fold, reviewing its performance so far in the National Assembly and the Senate, but most important, crafting ways of pushing its legislative agenda ahead of Parliament's reopening on Tuesday. The retreat follows a strategic meeting in Kisumu just last month. Some 15 senators, 14 governors, and 7 MPs sat in a closed-door meeting to kickstart CORD's rebranding for the 2017 general election. The Naivasha retreat appears to be picking up from that agenda. It began with CORD leaders poking holes in how the Jubilee government is running the country.
Mimi nataka mjue hivi.
But on the other side of the country, the deputy president was setting the stage for his coalition's parliamentary group meeting.
With responsibility, there must be accountability so that public resources are not threatened by mismanagement, theft, or corruption.
Jubilee will have its meeting at State House starting Monday. The government's controversial contract for the standard gauge railway is said to be among the hot topics for debate.
Tuko na agenda muhimu katika bunge, tuko na muswada bills karibu za serikali na za binafsi, tuko na zaidi ya 35. Tuko na bajeti, budget making process ambayo ni muhimu sana. Kuanzia tarehe 15 ambayo waziri wa fedha ataleta ile policy document.
Analysts say that the CORD retreat may result in a more fiery opposition, especially in Parliament. Jubilee, on the other hand, will have to tighten its operations to ensure that all its members sing in one tune. And as the two political powerhouses kick off their strategy meetings Monday, it's no secret that the political climate is set for some stormy days ahead. Asha Mwilu, KTN Weekend Prime.
A controversial monument commissioned by the Sikh community at a Kisumu roundabout has been removed after a mob vandalized it yesterday. The statue that was intended to mark 100 years since the Sikhs built their temple in Kisumu has in recent days raised emotion after the public opposed its erection. KTN's Fredo Muller reports.
It all started when members of Prophet David Owo's Repentance and Holiness Ministries came to this thoroughfare to oppose the erection of the monument. What followed was 3 days of raw intransigence as the mob bayed for the blood of the lifeless statue. They even went to the extent of booing former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who tried to reason with them yesterday.
Yani vile ilikuwa imekaa hivi, huyo jamaa alikuwa anafikiria sana bwana. Hiyo kitu ilikuwa na stress mingi sana, sasa ilikuwa inaogopesha hata watoto. Yani mtu anakaa hivi mpaka yani amefikiria mpaka tumbo ikatoboka. Ona hiyo. Hiyo ndio siku hata nilikuwa napita hapo nasema hata sikuwa nalala.
Unknown to them, one of their own sons, Oshoto Ondula, is the man who made the artistic piece that the Sikhs commissioned. A master sculptor, he also did the Tom Mboya statue along Kenyatta Avenue in Nairobi and a Jomo Kenyatta piece set to be unveiled in Cuba this year.
They were celebrating 100 years since their temple was built. So they told me to come up with a concept which was not going to have any influence with religion, faith, or anybody's culture.
The level of intolerance was unbearable despite the county government approving the artwork.
There's no day I've ever sat down and made a god. Basically, that thing is made out of cement. A god of an Indian is made out of brass or bronze, right? And that is not it. This is just an abstract representation of somebody who is praying. Because that is, you're given a brief. We want you to do A, B, C, D. So through the brief, that's what I did.
Accusations of idolatry and devil worship were leveled against the Sikh community, despite their belief system not having any idols or statues for adoration. A visit to the Sri Guru Singh Sabha temple that is 50 meters away from the monument revealed just as much.
We don't believe in idol worship. You have come here, you've seen everything. There's nothing like idol worship. Our temple is open to all, no caste, no creed, nothing. It is open to all. No color, Asians, blacks, whites, browns, Arabs, it is open to all.
For now, the purists have had their way after raising a ruckus over a lifeless work of art. Unlike other cities across the country and the world, Kisumu now stands as the one place where you would have to think twice before putting up any form of public art. From Kisumu City, I am Fredo Mulo.
Right, let's move to some peacemaking efforts now. Tears flowed freely as the mediation team appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta to reconcile warring communities in Moyale conducted talks aimed at fostering peace. The latest round of talks comes almost 6 months after at least 50,000 people were displaced from their homes following fighting between local communities. Schools are yet to resume learning, and as Rita Tinina reports, dozens of traders are still counting their losses.
Tuombe Mwenyezi Mungu na tukumbuke wale waliokufa, tukumbuke nyumba iliyochomwa, kukumbuke watu walioangamia.
The meeting had been called to seek ways of fostering peace between local communities in Moyale, Marsabit County, and the quest for peace drove some to tears. And it is easy to see why. In Heilu, Funanyata and Sesi areas of Moyale, destroyed houses are a clear sign of the elusive peace in parts of Moyale. These buildings were destroyed in August last year after a simmering conflict between the Borana, Gabra and Bruji communities flared up.
Sasa mimi nilikuwa naishi Manyata. Sasa wakati vita ilitoka mimi nilitoroka nyumbani. Niko kuishi kwa hii town. Hakuna kitu tulibaki nao. Ile nguo tumebaki nao ni tumevaa tuko nao.
Many traders are still counting their losses.
Ile jumba ile ya karama yake karibu 80 million pamoja na mizigo yake. Sai hakuna kitu umebata kwa hiyo huko.
Schools too were not spared. At the Moyale Girls Secondary School, the bullet holes tell it all. Learning is yet to resume in most schools over 5 months since the conflict began.
Shida ya shule yetu, walimu ndio hawakuja kutufunza.
Classes remain deserted. Aunts are now making some use of the blackboard at the St. Mary's Secondary School.
Sababu yote inatokana na hali ile ya malisho, natural resources ambaye imeleta matatizo.
To try and end the conflict, former House Speaker Francis Ole Kaparo and Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji, who were appointed by the President to mediate between warring communities, held a meeting with local political and religious leaders in Moyale.
Long-lasting, equitable peace. Hiyo ndio tungependa mpate.
Amani lazima irejee. Watoto wa shule waende wasome, mayatima wapate kulala vizuri.
Following the conflict, over 50,000 people have been displaced from their homes.
Population ya Moyale hii ni 80,000. 50,000 hawako manyumbani.
With residents yet to rebuild their lives following last year's fighting, many will be hoping that the latest round of peace talks in a Moyale hotel will yield real peace on the ground. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Right, we want to take a short commercial break right now on KTN Weekend Prime, but do stay with us. We have lots more coming up. Remember, Checkpoint is still coming up. We're talking about the MPs and their salaries, always a touchy issue. We'll be discussing that later, but also John Allen Namu's story on battle for ideology at the coast is still coming up as well, so do stay with us. Just ahead, your weekly political analysis, Checkpoint.
The petition will come from Jubilee, where we will compel Waki Commission to appear before Parliament and give their side of the story and bring the contents of that envelope, where we will ask Parliament to investigate the alleged envoys and their countries, where we will investigate the role of Kofi Annan, where we will unearth the role played by civil society activists, who we know them, where we will examine and look at the role of USAID in terms of funding donor money in our country, and unveil to the country the whole mystery of ICC.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
Right, tonight on Checkpoint, we go into that touchy issue once again of MP salaries and pay perks. The president has been on the record saying that the public wage bill is far too high. A group of people went to court the other day and the High Court ruled that the MPs had no business increasing their pay perks. And now there is the possibility that they could be returning some monies they have been earning since those pay perks were effected. What is the role of the SRC? What is the role of Parliament, especially in terms of introducing new pay perks for themselves? We'll be discussing this on Checkpoint today. Remember, you can tweet us your thoughts at Yvonne Okwara at KTN Kenya. Remember to use the hashtag Checkpoint. You can also send us an SMS 22155. I have a pretty new panel today, but they'll still be able to do it. MP Kanini Kiega, thank you so much for joining us. Okoiti Omtata, who went to court and was successful with this ruling that we're discussing today, as well as John Mbadi, who's our regular here, MP for Suba. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with you, Omtata. Going to court, getting this ruling, are you happy? And I hear you want to go for more. You're going for the jugular.
Well, I think there's nothing personal about it. What we basically are trying to do is to develop the law, to understand what the law is. This is a new constitution. So an issue came up and we felt that the people who have got the autonomy to interpret the constitution are the judges. So we took a dispute before the judges. And among the things that the judges looked at were simple things like in the constitution there's a phrase which says MPs cannot vote on an issue where they have an interest, you see. So when they were voting on this issue where they were dismissing the legal notices, they were violating that clause. And it's not just simply a question of how much MPs are paid. It's about being governed by the law. And so we felt like, personally I felt that if the MPs were not happy with what they had been given, they had an avenue in the industrial court to go and maybe deal with the issues of labor there. But to take it upon themselves and say we are the law unto ourselves and therefore we are going to move, I thought it went against the new constitution, which does not have the supremacy of any organ over the other. We've got 3 organs and some technically 4, because we also introduced commissions which enjoy a certain autonomy to be able to speak power to speak the truth to power. And so we just went to court to reassert the place of the Salaries Commission as the only body with the powers to set the salaries of the MPs.
Okay, all right. And we'll come to what you're planning to do next now that the High Court has made its ruling. Kanini Kiega, thanks for joining us today. Parliament has no power or legal capacity to determine their salaries, and the cry now is that Parliament is abusing the law and abusing the Constitution.
Absolutely, Parliament has no powers to adjust salaries, and I don't think Parliament has done so. I don't know where Okia Mtata got that information that Parliament actually increased their salaries, because
so what happened?
I actually saw in the papers that members of Parliament are paid 1.2 million. And I was asking myself, I'm in the National Assembly, I don't get that money. So there are a lot of wrong information going in and out.
All right, so in your view, what happened then? You say the pay perks were not increased. We are very clear, though, that the basic pay was not increased. It remains at 532, but there was some pay perks, which is why we're clearly calling it that.
In any institution, there is the employer. And in the case of the National Assembly, we have the Parliamentary Service Commission. And Parliamentary Service Commission, of course, I'm not a member, but I think they had some discussions, of course, with SRC. And if they decided to adjust anything, then I don't think it's Parliament which actually did that. If there was any adjustment, and of course, for sure, I'm saying there is nothing like 1.2. It's totally exaggerated, and I think
would you want to, yes, and we'll get to the breakdown in just a moment, and just talk about some of these things. John?
Let me start from the point that Okia Mtata and his team, who went to court, perfectly exercised their constitutional mandate under the Constitution. Article 22(2) allows any Kenyan who feels that the interest of the public is threatened in any way to go to court. And so I think insofar as going to court is concerned, they were right to go to court. I want to also add that actually it is the sole responsibility of the judiciary to interpret law. Parliament has a sole responsibility to make law. I only just want to add to what Honorable Kanini did say, that actually the contention, unless, I don't know where this notion about MPs having increased their salary came from. If you ask me, I think MPs there was contention about the salary awarded by SRC. I remember the stalemate lasted months, during which time the MPs didn't earn salaries. And so after which there was an agreement between SRC and MPs. The same even happened with the salary of MCAs.
MCAs, yes.
So the salary that MPs earn, the salary is actually constant. Not constant, but is the same amount that was initially gazetted.
Okay, allow me, sorry, to cut in. And we say the 1.2 million, you say that does not happen. You have a basic salary of 532,500. You can get an advance of 83,333. The salary will increase by 44,000 every year, meaning by the end of the 5-year term, your basic pay will be 710,000. You removed the cap on committee sittings. Now it's unlimited. We know our chair gets 10,000, member or the deputy gets 8,000. Your pension is now tax-free, in contravention to the income tax that states that, you know, pension should be done that. Let's talk about travel allowances. I mean, there's all these allowances, and let's understand the salary.
Can I correct you first?
Okay.
I don't know where you got this idea that pension is not taxed. That's illegal. Pension is taxable.
Yes.
And I think, let me also put it clear that the salary is not basic salary. The 532 is gross salary.
Yes.
What I think happened, and I think we need to be factual, let MPs not hide what they earn, and let not the public or anybody misinterpret what the MPs earn. The total package of MPs is 532.
Right.
All right? But there is additional pay that goes into MPs' pay slips that I'm aware of. And that is what the SRC did was to commute. And actually, I think it was a mistake, because you realize that there are MPs who come from Nairobi or around Nairobi. They also have to move within their constituency.
Yes, yes. The travel allowances is
what
understood.
SRC did was to commute 750 kilometers of every MP and factor it in the pay slip. That is the only additional money that is in the pay slip. But then any other MP like Mbadi, who comes from Suba, for example, and moves about 600 kilometers from Nairobi, in a month, you remove the 750, which is already commuted in your salary, but you get paid the extra allowance. That is the allowance that I'm aware of, plus the sitting allowance. And the sitting allowance for MPs is 7,500 before tax. Yep. After tax, it comes to 5,200.
All right. We will get into the nitty-gritties of this, but Tata, when we talk about this in the High Court ruling that stands, and this was the will of the people, that we wanted the SRC to be able to do that, when the members of Parliament nullified the Gazette notices by the SRC, what did that say about the public and their willingness to have members of Parliament come under the SRC?
Well, I think that members of Parliament were carrying over some old bad habits, which were there under the old order. But I think the court has now streamlined that, and they tell us that the legal notices stand. The Parliament did not have the capacity to annul them. And as far as we know, the Salaries Commission has not annulled them. So we might want to do an audit to see if there has been any cent paid beyond what has been allowed. And also the issue is that there are a lot of hidden allowances in Parliament, which MPs need to come clean about. Just talked about the mileage at 187 shillings per kilometer. Somebody doing 500 kilometers is earning 187,000 in we've got 1,000 kilometers, 500. Let's say you're going to Kisumu and back. That's about 500 kilometers, assuming you do that and then multiply by 4. And at transport, that private allowance is supposed to be, transport allowance is supposed to be claimed. It's not to be a standing charge. That's the mistake they're making. You should travel.
I'm thinking, maybe I think there is a lot of misconception, a lot of untruth, even from what you have read. And I think I would like to invite, because the National Assembly is an open place, I think I would like to invite Okia. Rather than get information from other quarters, let him come to Parliament. We are open on Tuesday. I mean, and whatever we get is an open, it's an open document.
Okay, but there are some increases. There are some.
Just allow me to answer.
May I say one thing?
Right.
Just allow me to answer.
I'm not allowed to enter the premises of Parliament. I've been blocked twice, including last week.
Yeah,
all right, okay, okay, understood. Mbadi?
I'll check you in. It's unfortunate that you are not actually, that's illegal.
Yes.
Actually, that's unconstitutional. But anyway, let me put it this way. The 187 that Omtata is talking about, remember this was SRC's award to MPs. Because initially, we were paying, MPs were getting 100 shillings per kilometer. What SRC did was to look at government departments, and they realized that all government departments use AA rates.
Okay.
Now, no, let me just finish. Let me finish it.
Because I'd like us to get away from the nitty-gritties and onto the bigger issue
here. The AA rates are different. The highest is 187, depending on the vehicle engine. And so, MPs realize, Kumbe, we have always been underpaid. And so we are just getting what other government departments get.
Here is the bigger question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kanini Kego, do you think you should be able to determine your own salary?
We don't. In fact, we don't.
Do you think you should be able to?
We shouldn't, honestly, because we have SRC.
However, that is what you were able to do. And I know the SRC agreed to it, and we all agreed to it. But then when you take a look at the public wage bill right now, we have devolution that's coming in.
Absolutely.
If MPs want more money, the members of county assembly want more money, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, and a host of other civil servants also want more money. But does it not strike you as odd that every time this issue of salary comes up, the average Kenyan feels cheated out of the people that they sent to Parliament to represent them, and it's always the first thing that comes up? What is your take now on the High Court ruling? Where does that leave you?
Absolutely. I said from the onset that there is a lot of misconception about the whole thing. MPs did not increase their salaries. That's a fact.
So it's not 1.2. How much did you take home at the end of January?
If I give you my which of course you'll be shocked.
No, you said it's not 1.2.
It is not 1.2. It is not even near there. It is not.
Can I answer you? The salary of an MP after tax, if an MP does not take a loan, is 581,000 shillings.
Yes.
That is take home. The other earnings for an MP is mileage. That one depends on how far you go. For Kanini Kega, I sympathize with him. Actually,
I don't get anything.
In a month he gets
sympathize because he...
Absolutely, I don't get anything.
Because his place is not far. So he gets...
So how would he get less than 100,000 if you just said it's 582, Omtata?
No.
You're saying about
you're talking about... No, I'm saying...
I mean, you just said,
I've talked about mileage. I'm talking about...
Well, if he's getting less than 100,000, the basic pay is 532.
Yvonne, can you just be a bit patient and listen to this? The salary of all members of Parliament
is 500.
After tax is 581 or thereabout. If an MP has not taken mortgage or anything.
Okay.
So that is it.
All right.
But the rest, the mileage, the rest is the mileage. That is what I was talking about.
All right.
The mileage.
There's also the issue of the car grant, for example. 3.3 million in the 10th Parliament. It's now 5 million.
Yes.
And this is a grant.
Now, that's a very important point because we want to come to the question of grants because the government is not a grant-making entity. So when you make a grant, and if you look at in the sixth schedule, and in chapter 6, they say any gift given to anybody should be, beyond a certain amount, should be surrendered to the state. And one of the things we are trying to push is that the MPs have got a justifiable argument that they need to be given a car, or whatever it is, to facilitate them, and some of them, the terrains are bad, they want a car for a certain standard, to massage their ego, to perform well, whatever it is. But we are saying they have no way you can give a grant. You look at the youth fund, these poor people are paying a loan to get money from the government. They pay back. The wealth of fund that is all over, you have to pay back, it's a loan. The women fund is a loan. So there's no justification, even under practice of the government, for MPs to get a grant.
Because the total of the car grant comes to 2.08 billion.
So what we're saying, no, forget about that. What we're saying is that the grant, once the car is bought, the car should remain property of the Kenyan state. The MP can have it. He can even be given a private number plate. He can operate it without the restrictions of GK. But the day he stops being an MP, that cash would revert to the state.
Yvonne, let me have my take on this.
All right.
My take.
Yes.
If, for example, a DC is posted in, for example, in my constituency, Kenya, is given a vehicle and fueled, of course, with a driver, security person. Or what we said, in fact, myself, I would be very, very comfortable. If the government offered me a vehicle, a driver, I would be comfortable. They will fuel it and they will service it. I have absolutely no problem. Because the kind of expenses that we go through in maintaining those vehicles when we are up country, it's astronomical. It's unbelievable.
Can I just, how much it is they are given a car allowance of about 900,000.
Can I just add?
Per year.
That is total misinterpretation.
Yes.
Let us be factual.
All right. What is the fact?
Let me just put it this way. The car grant, and I heard Omtata calling a grant a gift. I wish to inform you that a grant is not a gift. A grant is a grant. Even Kenya government gets grant. So let me.
Yeah, the Kenya government gets grants, but the Kenya government is not a grant making anything.
Let me put it this way. We have said this many times. Can the government then buy vehicles for MPs?
Absolutely.
Even if you walk to my car today, which I bought just out here, the one I used to come here, and the one I've just come with from the constituency, I bought it in July with the so-called car grant. I even added some more money. But that vehicle has clocked 34,000 kilometers. If you divide that by the 6 months, that is on average 5,500 kilometers per month. And on rough terrain, I don't know whether this government would really maintain cars for MPs. Let us be factual. If you are giving vehicles to permanent principal secretaries who are just here in Nairobi, who you don't even need to travel to constituencies, our core responsibility is to represent our people. You are telling us that we cannot get government vehicles. That is double speak.
What we are saying,
if you can give us the vehicles, and there is no MP who has refused to take a vehicle from government. But the government realized that it is more costly to maintain.
All right.
But we're saying the vehicle should belong to government.
That is if,
what about that?
But now, that is if,
would you be willing to leave the cars behind?
By election.
Let me tell you, it is, let's be practical. If you give an MP a vehicle, it cannot take 5 years. You will take back a scrap to government. If that is what you want, so be it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
that's all you want. So
Agreed on this. Omtata, what's the next step? Because now the High Court ruling has said this was unconstitutional. You and the Law Society of Kenya want to take this a step further.
We want to look at the ruling because there are issues that we raised in the petition that the court did not address. So we need to know how we are going to address those issues. And because the court was silent on them, did not address them. And, but the most important thing is on the side of allowances, there's also a lot of fraud that the MPs are engaged in. Like this is allowances for committees and allowances for appearing in parliament. We have documentation where some MPs on the same day, at the same time, they were in parliament, they were in 2 committees. So some of them are insincere. And these are among the things that need to be contained because to me, an MP is a very important person in the country. He's a legislator, he's supposed to be a role model. And if the MP can obey the law, I'm telling you, the impact down there is huge. But if an MP enjoys impunity, then you'll find everybody misbehaving. And you see, like,
Yvonne,
yes?
a member of parliament, and he needs to know, has 3 roles: legislative, representation, and oversight. In fact, what we do in parliament is just executive. It's like an executive summary. Most of the work in parliament happens in committees. Last week, in fact, on Monday, and we were on recess, we were called upon because there was a petition by people from Tharaka about land, because I'm in the committee of land. We had to travel from Nairobi to Tharaka, even some very, very remote places where you sleep, you are very, very insecure, but you do it. Now he would say, I went there because of 5,000. Do you think I would leave Nairobi to go to Tharaka with all those insecurity because of 5,000? No, I wouldn't do that.
I'm saying that some MPs are engaged in fraud whereby you find that an MP has attended 2 meetings at the same time that were running concurrently.
All right, but for that, honestly, we don't have any proof of that. If you had some proof of documentation, that would help. Okay.
Is that we also have internal mechanisms.
Yes.
You cannot be paid for all those meetings, or for all the meetings you attend.
Let's talk about that internal mechanism.
Yeah, the internal mechanisms is in a day you cannot be paid for more than 3 sittings. That's a fact. You can attend as many as you wish, but you can only be paid for a maximum of 3. Further, some of us, I tell you, Yvonne, we have even missed meetings of committees because we have to attend to other important functions. 5,000 really, I don't think would compel me to sit in a meeting. Yeah? So I don't think the urge of 5,000 will take me to a meeting. We should also...
There's also another aspect.
Some respect to
Absolutely.
members of parliament.
There is also, there's the aspect though...
I respect
5,000, I will tell you for a fact.
5,000 times 100
I'll tell you,
It's 500,000.
you see,
but I'm putting that example.
Yvonne,
Yes,
let me tell Mtata.
Yes.
If I decide to make money, in a day I can make much more than the 15,000 I would make in committees.
Okay.
So if it is
All
just
right.
a question of
Thank you
to
for
make
that.
money, I would
Kega?
not even attend those
I think from his submission, you see a lot of anomalies. I mean, a lot of missing links. Yeah, he is working on a lot of hypotheses, and he said that he has been refused to enter parliament, which I think is not true. If you really want to put a strong case, even for the appeal case and all that, please come to parliament. We are going to give you all that information, and definitely you'll be able to put up a case.
All right.
Because basically, as I said, 5,000. And I want to repeat,
All right.
not make me go to
I think we've gotten that point down, though many of the Kenyans, even on Twitter and on SMS today, are simply unhappy with this, raising the issue of it being a moral issue much more than, and I know we can go into the details of the work that you do and it being, you know, commensurate to the pay that you get. But for most Kenyans, they feel this is unfair.
So what is that? That is unfair.
Yeah, here we go. Let me read you a couple of tweets. Yeah. Tell them they don't have to be MPs. They're acting like they're being forced to do so. Why do, that was Eric Christopher. Tomboya says, a pertinent question. Why do Kenyan MPs feel that they should be amongst the best paid legislators in the world? Justifiable? Given a report card to rate our MPs, my rating will be 2 out of 10, says Emanuela. And all of these are sentiments being raised by the general public and by the constituents. You can talk about misinformation all you want, but they feel you shouldn't be earning what you're earning. Kega?
From the onset, and we said,
and
we
they
have
are
not
the ones
raised,
paying the salary.
We have not raised
I think
our
we've
salaries.
made that very clear.
You know, and maybe that's the reason, because that's the reason people are saying that they're unhappy with us and all that. Because
but you're certainly not earning the same as before you sat down with the SRC last year.
Can I just answer?
Can we agree on that? The car grant is higher. Your allowances are more. Can we just agree on that? No? Yes?
Let me put it to you this way. Yeah? The point is, it is true that MPs negotiated the salary with SRC, which any other state officer. There were a lot of negotiations, even with commissions. So it is not just the MP. The MP's case was hyped, which is normal because they are people's representative. Let me tell you, the issue of remuneration of representatives is not just unique to Kenya. Go to any country. It's like, I think people's representatives are expected to work pro bono. And I think that if that is what Kenyans want, they should tell MPs, you go, work.
All right, I'd like, I'd just...
So that volunteers can come and become MPs, yes.
All right, okay. Let's just have the final thoughts again. And I'll ask this question again because I don't think it's been answered. Kenyans feel you shouldn't be earning what you're earning. Kenyans are the taxpayers. They're the ones paying you. What do you think about that?
It's a general concern, even for us, that the wage bill is high. In fact, by the end of the financial year, things might even be very, very different because we have seen the county governments are really employing and in total disregard of even what had been given as guidelines. For me, as the MP for Kenya, and I had even said it from the word go, I did not ask for this seat for the money part of it. And it is clear, and they know it even in my constituency. I didn't do it basically for the money. And for sure, there are some, okay, for me, I left business and all that to come and really work for the people. The others who left well-paying jobs, honestly well-paying jobs.
And they did it of their own volition.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Okay.
So we should not be demonized and seen as if we are there to make money. We are not there to make money. I said, as an MP, you have 3 roles. Even when I'm here, I'm still representing my
All right, here's another one, just very quickly. If Okwara Mtata and the team managed to get that High Court ruling that compels you to return the money, would you?
If I have been paid illegal money, if I have absolutely no reason not to pay.
Mtata, then tell us about that next step and just summarize that for us quickly. Of course, everybody thinking...
For me, what is very important is that, and I'm happy my brothers have said that they agree with the High Court ruling, that they are not entitled to fix their own money, their salaries and what have you. So I think that what is important is the achievement of Kenyans in the sense that we are establishing a culture of having the rule of law. My concern is not necessarily how much an MP earns, but how an MP earns what he earns. And we have said the MP should earn what he earns through this. The moral questions on the allowances are this, like teachers, we employ teachers to work in the classroom. When a teacher goes to say he wants chalk allowance, to touch the chalk, to do whatever, you know, there are moral issues that come out. We elect MPs to work in parliament. Why do we pay them allowances and a salary for the work they do, including the committees, including representing us on the floor of parliament? You see, those are the moral issues that we need to come to terms with, not necessarily how much they're earning, but how they're earning, what they're earning. And I also believe that an MP should lead a decent life, should have represent his people. I would not expect my brother here when he's going there, he's in Tatas or whatever. Let us streamline this thing as a family, as one part, as a people, and we get to a point whereby there is more understanding of what the MP does. Because also another problem is our own people also look at MPs as ATMs. That we have not to look. We do that. This man might have to borrow a vehicle to pass some areas. Because this vehicle has been marked already appears, all manner of things are thrown at him. Those realities are there. We also need to educate our people that MPs are not community development officers. MPs are legislators mainly. They're making for us the laws, and they're not supposed to be ATMs for people. There's a lot that needs to be done around the issue of the payment of MPs. But the ruling of the High Court has interpreted the law correctly, that our brothers should really follow due process if they are aggrieved.
Okay, all right. Finally, Mbadi?
For me, I think I agree totally with the ruling of the High Court that MPs don't have the powers to really adjust this, and no state officer has that powers. It is with the SRC. If there is any payment that was given to anybody, MP or any other state officer, that was not approved by SRC, then that is a legal payment. But I want to also add that we need to respect the judiciary. Once judiciary makes a determination, it must be respected. And MPs are not exception. We would respect the High Court ruling whichever way it comes. Although I know for sure that there is no illegal payment that has been given to members of parliament.
So confident you won't be having to make any refunds? Yes, I know there is nothing that I will have to pay back, but let me just make a concluding remark. That the issue of wage bill, I think, is something that we really need to discuss without emotions. And I think this is where I fault SRC. And I've said it a number of times, unfortunately, and you'll forgive me for saying this, that sometimes I feel SRC is not competent. What I expected SRC to have done was to freeze salaries of all state officers at the level they were. And then take time, say 1 year, and do a thorough audit and do a thorough job evaluation, job analysis, to determine the correct remuneration for all the state officers and even recommend for other public officers, rather than rushing to gazette salaries of a few individuals and then causing a lot of issues and finally even adjusting them upwards. I mean, it doesn't really help this upwards country. when the economy can handle it. All right, okay, thank you, gentlemen, for coming in and talking about this issue. It'll definitely be something that we will keep talking about, and we'll keep up with your next forays in court regarding this issue. Thank you, gentlemen. That's been it. We will continue to sample your views as we carry on with the bulletin. It's not over yet, but let's take you to that story that we had promised you. And but I'm told we should take a break first, and we will come back to that story by John Alanamo. That's all after the break.
The idea that
Right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's take you to that story we had promised you. The number of those killed as a result of terror-related attacks in Kenya is still not clear. And as security forces struggle to contain the threat, one town is under the microscope. And that town is Mombasa. KTN's John Allen Namu now reports on an emerging trend of the battle for information and the hardline stance both the security forces and radical youth have taken to silence the perceived enemy.
Thursday, the 23rd of January, 2014. Shops have just opened along this street off the main Malindi roundabout. A hardware store's CCTV camera records the events of this early morning. Mohammed Bakshuain is about to pull into this street. It's alleged that he was going to meet with a senior police officer to discuss new developments in the murder of one of his associates, Faiz Mohammed. What he doesn't know is that he's being followed by 3 men on a motorcycle. Bakshuain pulls into this street in his Nissan X-Trail. The motorcycle pulls up in front of him. A man dressed in a white shirt, this man here, gets off the motorcycle and approaches the driver's side window. The CCTV clock reads the time as being 8:14 and 46 seconds when this man pulls out a pistol and fires off 3 shots, just as this tuk-tuk passes in front of the window, obscuring the view from this camera. Within 10 seconds, he's back on the bike and rides off with his co-conspirators. It takes a few minutes before the shocked members of the public who were around realize just what happened and who it was that had just been murdered. Christopher, not his real name, an associate of Bakshuain, tells me why this murder was significant.
And till currently, he was very close to police.
Mohammed Bakshuain was a police reservist for many years and by many local accounts, also an informant for American spy agencies, the CIA and the FBI. It's claimed that he was a key cog in the information chain about the emergent threat of the Al-Shabaab. His murder was more indicative to a shift in the current concerns about a radicalizing coastal region than more people realize.
The early morning murder of Mohammed Bakshuain down that street in Malindi lays bare a number of issues in this battle. One of those is the battle for information. On the one hand, the battle to suppress that information by his killers, who by police accounts are Al-Shabaab adherents. But on the other hand, is a battle to save information from informants. By many accounts, Mohammed Bakshuain was one of them, and they are being picked off by suspected Al-Shabaab adherents. But this battle is brutalizing day by day. Mohammed Bakshuain was killed by 3 bullets, 2 to the head and 1 to the chest. But there was a far more brutal murder than his that happened about a month earlier. Faiz Mohammed, a colleague of Mohammed Bakshuain, was beheaded in broad daylight.
Ndio kuna dadangu mwingine hapo ndio akanifuata. Ndio akaniambia lakini sasa hili neno hatujawa na hakika. Lakini amepigiwa simu mama ameambiwa kwamba Faiz tushamuua lakini hao watu hawakujieleza ni kina nani.
Walikuja kuleta pita, mara wanamchinja, sijui kama mliona. Mara wameweka kichwa juu ya. Sasa hapo kidogo ikatuletea athari zaidi. Nikasema mimi hapa sitaweza kubaliana na hii na nitafuacha haya mambo na hata kama nife lakini nijue kwamba mimi ndugu yangu nimejua hili jambo hili lilitokea ni vipi.
Faiz's relatives point to a murder that was a game changer in the fight against terrorism at the coast. His was amongst the first of targeted murders perpetrated by suspected Al-Shabaab adherents. Then came Bakshuain's murder.
He was very close with late Faiz, and late Faiz was from a group of Al-Shabaab.
Malindi DCIO John Ndongo, who spoke to us on phone, says that for now, the link between these 2 murders is anecdotal, with no real connection other than Bakshuain and Faiz's friendship. But Malindi-based police officers, speaking to us confidentially, claim that not only are they linked, but there is a kill list authored by the Al-Shabaab of yet more suspected informants. According to Christopher, The murders of Faiz and Bakhshwain were celebrated by supporters of his killers, many of whom he claims belong to the now controversial Masjid Musa. In the mosque, though, the young men who speak to me deny that anyone amongst them would perpetrate such an act, but freely admit that it is informants who they claim are supplying the police with false information that ought to be dealt with.
Kwanza nikikujua wewe ni jasusi, nitakumaliza. Lakini sasa kijana mimi, sijawahi ona kijana mwenzangu wala hatujawahi fanya tukio la kummaliza jasusi. Na iwapo tutalifanya hilo jambo, tutaona raha. Kwa sababu tunatamani kama leo tumalize majasusi.
It's serious. It has reached levels that, you know, have become alarming, and everyone who is claimed to be a spy, no one brings forth evidence to show that this one is a spy or not.
His statements are brazen and scary. But the bedrock of Hisham and other young men in this mosque's claims stem from something very real that has been happening at the coast. The extrajudicial killings of tens of men either suspected to be radicalized or actively supporting terrorist aims in Kenya. Police claim that these allegations are more urban legend than fact, but there is some truth to this that we have verified. In August last year, we went to Kiembeni in Mombasa to gather information about the murder of Salim Nyiro by the police for an investigative report on extrajudicial killings at the coast. We spoke to then 17-year-old Twalha Hassan, Nyiro's brother-in-law, who was in the house when police stormed in, having apprehended Nyiro, leading him to his bedroom and shooting him 6 times in the head. He was withdrawn and sullen when we spoke to him, still in mourning. Less than a year later, we're in Ukunda to interview Twalha again. In his palm is a picture of his father, Suleiman Mayuyu, who we met last year. It is the only picture that Twalha has of his father, that and his memory, because Suleiman was shot to death by suspected police officers in Tiwi on the 5th of December last year.
Akafika Tiwi pale, kuna gari kwa wamfuata nyuma. Ndio kwa kuna jamaa yani ameingia ndani ya gari, baba ameingia ndani ya hiyo Nissan na jamaa akaingia jamaa mmoja. Huko nyuma kuna gari nyingine hawafuata. Akafika mpaka Tiwi, jamaa ndio akasema, akaona pale hapana nyumba, akasema nishukisheni hapa. Ndio aliposhukishwa ndio akamalizana naye.
The 2 persons went inside the matatu, went straight to where he was seated, and they shot him at point blank range.
Today, he is less withdrawn than he was last year. His calm demeanor cracks, letting through hot wisps of rage at the people who he believes caused his father's death, men he suspects are police informants.
Majasusi. Kuwaua ni haki, maana utamuuzaje mwenzako auliwe afu wewe upone na watoto wako huko na familia yako, huku ule muuza akauliwa, watu wake wapata shida, huko na wewe untulia tu na familia yako.
Last year, police said that Twalha's father, Suleiman, was involved in plans to burn churches in Tiwi, Ukunda, linking him to the Al-Shabaab. Twalha bitterly denies this. As he does so, I can't help but notice how he's hardened, more resolute in tone. There's a distinct change in the Twalha before me and the one that I met last year. Back at Masjid Musa, the opinions of its increasingly young flock have hardened as well. These claims not unlike Twalha's.
Kitu kitanipa mimi msimamo mkali. Leo wewe umeuliwa, sijui ni kwa nini. Nitachunguza. Kesho ameuliwa yule. Nikija nikiangalia sababu aliouliwa yule ndo umeuliwa wewe. Umeuliwa mwingine kwa sababu hii. Nikiangalia naona na nyote mko right. Lazima na mimi nitaona kwa nini hao wanauliwa kwa kudhulumiwa. Unaona? Sasa na mimi itabidi niweke msimamo.
I want to make it crystal clear here. Maswala ya usalama is not about public relations. Kwa hiyo public relation na kupigia mdomo story inaisha, siku imeisha. Security of the state remains security.
What we're doing is to create that stature where people feel that this is part of the oppressive elements that go with a just cause.
Central to the ideological war is their perception of the Islamic tenet of jihad or the defense of the Islamic faith.
Kuna baba yao ambaye ni kilele, ambayo ni kupigana ima kwa mdomo, kwa mikono ama kwa pesa kwa ajili ya Mwenyezi Mungu mmoja.
The government has a stand on that. Anybody who has an agenda, whether kanisani, whether msikitini, wherever, kwa madrases, kwa shule, the government will move in.
Jihad sio vita. Jihad ni kuwatoa vijana katika mifumo mibaya. Kama unavyojua leo hii, vijana wengi wa Kiislamu wameathirika na jambo la madawa ya kulevya.
Even here, there's a split in ideology and perceptions. But Hisham, Makbul, and the opinions they represent are unified in their perception that they are being unjustly targeted. They blame mainstream Muslim clerics for not addressing their very real concerns.
Hawa wazee wamechukua hatamu kwa muda mrefu sana, zaidi ya miaka 20-30. Lakini hatujaona sisi kama vijana suala la kutuendesha mbele ambalo wamelifanya. Ndakupa swala moja. Kwa nini mihadharati inakuwa tatizo sugu hapa Pwani na inaua ndugu zetu? Wamefanya juhudi gani kuondosha suala kama hili?
There's a way you can cooperate without being co-opted. Most of the clerics became part and parcel of the security agencies, their narratives, their transgressions. Rather than cooperate to a point where you retain an institutional independence, you advise and you critique.
But the leaders have a responsibility on this because this is not a new phenomenon in Sakina Mosque and Muskiti Musa. It has been going on. We have tried to involve them. They also have a responsibility or taking care of their youths, and this has not happened. But today, we have agreed on the way forward that they themselves must take the lead. They must form the committee of that mosque.
Hatuelewi, tunaelewa isipokuwa mashekhe walitupotosha kwa kuacha miadarati ingie Mombasa, ndipo maana sisi hatukuzingatia yale ambayo tulikuwa tunayajua.
The cleric's seeming inaction has come up again and again as a major cause of the current swing of youth towards a more hardened brand of their faith.
Na hata sisi vijana wakituua, kwa vile Mwenyezi Mungu dini yake ni ya kweli, kutatoka watoto, wacha vijana watoto na watasimamisha jihad. Kwa hiyo hilo la kuwa tuongozwa na wazee ama vijana, tuliongozwa na wazee, tukaongozwa na vijana. Sasa hakuna kutuongoza, tuongozwa na Mwenyezi Mungu.
A lot of the youth here started coming to the mosque more often after the death of Sheikh Aboud Rogo, but have found his controversial messages still amplified here. Hisham, for instance, has only been back to the mosque consistently for 3 months. I ask him whether he's being misled, given that he may not fully understand the full context of the message being given here.
Kwa hiyo nitakapokufa, nitaamini Mwenyezi Mungu anataka mimi nife katika upotofu. Na nitakapokufa, nikienda nikipata mazuri, basi itakuwa faida ni kwangu.
John Alanamu, KTN, Mombasa County.
Thank you for that, John Alan Namu, making of terror. Let's take a short break now. We'll be back with the sports news.
It's a good start for Kenyan clubs in continental football as AFC Leopards beat Defence Forces.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
Right, let's start off with football news. Kenya overwhelmed Zambia 3-0 with the sets of 25-15, 25-15, 25-17 to achieve their second victory in the 2014 Men's World Championships Qualifiers Africa Pool U that was played at the Safaricom Indoor Arena. The result brought Kenya's win-loss record at the tournament to 2-1, while Zambia dropped to 0-3. Egypt outclassed Botswana 3-0 on the fourth day of the tournament in the first match of the day. The victory brought Egypt's winless record at the tournament to 3-0, while Botswana dropped to 2-1. Egypt play Cape Verde, while Kenya takes on Botswana as the curtains roll down on the tournament on the 10th of February. Multiple Safari Rally Navigator champion Tim Jessup won the newly introduced veterans class as the opening round of the Kenya National Motocross Championship, which revved off at the Jamhuri Park racetrack. Elsewhere at the City Park hockey turf, Kenyatta University beat fellow students JKUAT to a 1-0 scoreline in the Hockey League. More now in our local sports wrap.
Veteran rally guru Tim Jessup, who navigates Carl the Flash Tundu, made a stunning comeback after many years in sabbatical leave. 2 of the 3 heats at stake in the inaugural veteran class as the opening round of the Kenya National Motocross Championships revved off at the Jamhuri Park racetrack. Class MX65 defending champion Elias Sherman beat close opponents Robbie Malongo and Mohamed Anwar to emerge the victor. The event witnessed riders involved in accidents such as Tutumaina and Apollo Mbuki. Elsewhere in hockey, Shadrach Ruto's 48th minute goal gave Kenyatta University a 1-0 victory over neighbours JKUAT. Multimedia University beat Mount Kenya University by 2-0, while Nakuru Sikh beat Thika Rovers by 3-1. Victor Ogale, KTN Sports.
KTN weather forecast in association with Mortein Doom Cockroach Killer. In cracks where cockroaches hide, use Mortein Doom Power Guard in drains to kill them before they come out. Spray Mortein Doom Power Guard in dustbins too. Mortein Doom! The ultimate cockroach killer.
Right, and so we've come to the end of our bulletin, getting a lot of feedback here for John Alanamu's and Dennis Onsarigo's pieces that we had on the making of terror, and also quite a number of tweets and SMSs regarding MP's pay perks. And Muganda Clay, thank you for tweeting. You say the MPs say Umtata had wrong info, but the court didn't reject it. They should convince the courts otherwise. I want to take a look at another one. Darlington, you say, let the MPs stop trying to paint the picture that they are sacrificing to work. Their earnings are insane. Doc Palo, you say, public services are calling, not a wealth-making venture. Well, thank you so much for your tweets, for your text messages regarding Checkpoint tonight. Tomorrow is another day. We'll see you then. Have a good night. My name is Yvonne Okwara.